Hello everybody and welcome back to day 3 of the boat restoration. Right now it's currently more of a revival and destruction than restoration, but you know what, that's okay. Because today I've got a borrowed distributor off of a friend, and a borrowed HEI distributor off of a friend, let me put it that way. So you don't have to worry about if the coil on the boat's good, the points are good, because the points look terrible, they're not good. We don't have to worry about any of that because all I need to do is jump power to the HEI off the battery and send it. So that's what we're going to do. Now, have the distributor out. I brought my oil pump priming tool along, so we're going to prime the oiling system of the engine. I'm going to open the oil fill cap on the valve covers and make sure we got oil getting to the rockers. And I also have an oil pressure gauge, a mechanical oil pressure gauge that we're going to put on it to make sure we're getting oil pressure. That's somewhat decent anyway. Pulled number 1 spark plug and bumped it over with, as Vice Grip Garage refers to it, the Lone Wolf 6000. On a solenoid. Spun the motor over to find top dead center on the compression stroke for number 1 cylinder. That way we know where to drop the distributor in at. I'm going to prime the motor. That way we know that's good. And also that'll kind of tell us if we're getting oil pressure, as I'll be able to tell from the way the drill bogs down if we're getting decent oil pressure or not. Yeah. I got some carburetor cleaner. I'll probably spray a bunch of carburetor cleaner into the float bowl and see if it leaks out of the carb, just tell if the needle and seat's stuck. I'm thinking I'll probably pull the carb off, actually. Maybe, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull the carburetor off of it, because I know there were some helicopters that probably fell down inside of it, because I opened the throttle blades and didn't think to clean off the throttle blades, so that's on me. But yeah, basically I'll get suck the intake out with the shop vac as good as I can. Realistically, helicopters, leaves and stuff, that shouldn't really cause a problem. It theoretically could get stuck on a valve and cause the valve to stick open and leak down. I know it won't be a problem on the exhaust valve because it'll burn off. The intake valve, it could be a problem. I doubt it's going to cause a major issue. I guess if it does, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it if I have something in there, but I'm not pulling the intake off of this in case there might be something in it. I'm going to suck it out the shop vac, visually inspect as best I can that it's okay, and we're just going to kind of send it because that's how I roll. And it's worked out pretty good for me so far. Then again, looking at this boat, maybe it wasn't the best idea. But anyway. So yeah, we're going to drop the distributor in, get that wired up. Well, we're going to prime the oiling system, then drop the distributor in and see what we got going here. I do have a little bit of, I got about a half a gallon of new gas, which will be plenty for what we want to do. If we can get it to run pretty decent and idle and whatever, or even if we got to give it some throttle to make it run kind of thing, I would like to hook the hose up to it and see if we're pumping water. That way, if we're not, I can get ahead of that impending disaster and start finding water pump parts, because it's most likely going to be the suction pump. Also, I wouldn't mind popping the block drains, combine 2 words into one. Wouldn't mind pulling the block drains on the side and see if we have antifreeze come out or water, because that'll tell me something also. If it's got antifreeze in it, that means somebody took care of it. And also, that means that the chances of us having a cracked block are extremely minimal. I think it's safe to say that the chances right now of us having a cracked block are relatively low, just because it spins over very freely and there's no hard spots or weird spots. If we would have had a cracked block, there'd be water in the cylinder, and it probably would have frozen the rings to the cylinder wall, and I would have never gotten this to spin. And it spun right away with no problems, so I don't think we're going to have an issue. And like I said, there's no water in the oil, nothing. None of the freeze plugs are pushed out. None of them look like they moved. everything looks okay. So I'm hoping that everything is okay. But there's only one way to find out. So, the oil looks great, so we're not even going to change that. It looks like it was changed. And I don't even know if this boat's been run with the oil that's in it. Because it's perfectly golden clear. So, yeah. I'm going to get the oil pump primed and see what we got. All right. So, as you can see, I got the drill in there with the primer tool. Oil pressure, mechanical oil pressure gauge hooked up. Disconnected the original electronic sensor because that is of no use to me right now. And I've already primed it, and I did not bring my tripod with me. May not be able to see in there, but we have oil. I don't have any on this side yet, but we have oil at the top. Important thing. So we got 50 pounds of oil pressure. It's the important thing. Running off of a drill in speed 1. Speed 2, which is probably about 1500 RPM, immediately sends her to 60. So we've got good oil pressure. And I've already spun the motor over. That's how I got oil up here. So we've got oil. That looks awful. This is going to end up needing new valve covers probably. But we have oil in places we need oil. She's about a quart low. But I'll tell Coby to bring some. So, whoopsies, almost fell. Anyway, oil pump appears to be good. And being that we have 60 pounds of oil pressure on a cold start, or what would be a cold start, and it's not, it's about 80 degrees out here. That's pretty good, especially running off a power drill. I think that drill maxes at 1600 RPM, and it's bogged down a lot from cranking that oil. So that means all the bearings and everything should be in pretty good shape. So I don't know what viscosity is in it. They might have 520 in this. They might have 20W60 in it with 3 bottles of Lucas. I don't know. It didn't seem like thick oil because, as you could hear, it really didn't bog the drill down that much. It really didn't. So I don't think it's super thick oil, and it gets oil pressure really quick. Usually thicker oil, it'll take a little bit of a second to get oil pressure on your mechanical gauge. So that tells me that our motor is probably pretty healthy. Pulled the number 1 spark plug out. I'm not going to pull all of them. There's no point. Number 1 cylinder is running pretty good. It looks. It's got some deposits on it. But they're hard. I'm wondering if they're rust. More so, which would make sense because it's sat for 20 years. But it looked like the mixture was pretty spot on. Maybe a little bit rich, but nothing crazy. It wasn't covered in soot, wasn't covered in deposits, nothing crazy, stupid. So we're good there. Battery's dead again. So I'm going to pop that off, pop it on the jumper cables on my truck, and just leave the truck idling to charge it. And in the meantime, I'll get the distributor popped in. My ding-dong butt totally forgot that I already had the thing set at top dead center. So I'm going to have to pull number 1 spark plug again and reset it at top dead center, which could be a problem due to the fact that the battery is currently dead. That makes it inconvenient. Any hoozle. Which way does this spin? You would think that by now I would know which way a small block Chevy spins. That way. Okay. Clockwise. Okay. There's no point. I'm going to pop that spark plug out real quick while I still apparently have a little bit of battery left, and maybe I can get it set at TDC real quick. So, catch y'all when I get that done. So I just had an interesting development. Any of you that know small block Chevys know what this is. It's the oil pump drive rod that goes to the bottom of the distributor. It got stuck in my oil pump priming tool when I pulled it out. Now, there is supposed to be a nylon ring down there. You can't see it. I'm pretty sure it's there. It looks like it's there. And basically that just kind of holds this centered. But as you can see, it's keyed. That's the oil pump end. That's the distributor end. It is keyed, obviously, to lock it in to drive it. So all you really have to do is get a magnet on a stick, which I have with me, I think. Pretty sure it's in my tool bag. And set it down in there and make sure you get this locked in place. Or we could jam it in the bottom of the distributor and turn the distributor until it locks in place. Either way works. I'm going to do the magnet idea just because I feel like that's going to give me a little bit safer of a bet in locking it in. But anyway, yeah. So don't freak out if that ever pops out with your distributor, because it's actually not an engine out service to do. You just got to get it, make sure you get it dropped in the right spot. That's pretty much all. And watch your oil pressure when you first start it, and ensure that you have oil pressure, because if you don't have oil pressure, shut her down quick, because that means you didn't line it up right. Yeah, here's my magnet on a stick. Hopefully that's strong enough to hold that drive rod up. Oopsies. Ow, they don't make these easy to get into, do they? Guess you can't exactly put a door on it. That would be a water hazard. Anyway, I'm going to get that installed and get back with you. So here you can, what I'm doing is I'm sticking a screwdriver on the oil pump drive rod, which you can see in the center of that bore down through the distributor hole. The reason I'm voicing this over is because I have a life-proof case on my phone, and it's not the best case for audio quality, but it protects my phone the best so that I can do stuff like this without having to worry about hurting my phone. But anyway, the point I was getting at here is anybody that's ever been inside of an engine knows what a cast iron engine looks like after 100,000 miles. This engine looks brand new on the inside, except for that little spot of rust that we saw. But it's still light gray, fresh cast iron color. I mean, that is genuinely impressive. I've never seen an engine that clean on the inside, ever, in all my time working on stuff. It's not even oil stained. This thing really doesn't have a whole lot of time on it. Anyway, so what I like to do after you get that dropped in there, get you a flathead screwdriver. A long one. Get it in your oil pump, the drive rod slot. Okay. And if you spin the oil pump backwards, it'll blow bubbles. If you spin the oil pump one direction, which is forwards on a drill, okay, if you spin it that way, it will suck oil up to the rest of the system. If you spin it backwards, it will suck from the rest of the system and blow a little bit of residual oil, but mostly air, into the oil. So, and on a good oil pump that's in good condition, it will seal good enough that it will blow a bubble or two from spinning it with a screwdriver. So what you just saw me do there was I spun the screwdriver and listened, and I heard it like make a sucking noise, but really that was just the oil bubbling. So I know that drive rod is engaged in the oil pump. I know that it is. That's how you can kind of double check. And like I said, watch your oil pressure gauge first time you start it after that happens. And as long as you have oil pressure, you're fine. You'll be fine. Now, if that nylon ring is gone, you're taking a little bit of a risk of that drive rod being able to walk out and disengage from the oil pump. It should be okay because it's in a relatively tight machined hole in the block, so it shouldn't be able to walk out of there. That's kind of a designed-in safety, but just an FYI. I'm pretty sure I see that nylon ring in there. There's not really anything I can do. Really what I want to know is if this engine's going to fire and make sure it's not going to knock. That's what I want to know. That's what we're going to try to find out. So I'm going to pop the battery out, get it charging off of my truck, and worst case we can move this bench and pull the truck up right here and jump it. I got some really long jumper cables. I think they're 10 or 15 footers, so we can jump the boat if we need to. But we're getting places. We have oil. We know the pump's good. Apparently the pump's really good. And also that means that the bearings are probably in really good shape also. And judging from the inside of that block, we're doing real good because that block is still bare. It's still clean, fresh cast iron on the inside. You saw that. Every other block I've ever taken apart stained a dark brown, almost a rust brown on the inside from years and years of oil and carbon being just kind of absorbed into the cast iron. That's not like that. That hour meter right there says 280 hours on it. I don't believe that. Only because 280 hours, this is a 1980 to 2001. Okay. 1980 to 2001. That's 21 years. 200 hours divided by 280 hours, we'll round up and say, well, let's keep it at 200 for simple math because I'm not great at mental math. 200 hours over 21 years, we'll say 20 years for simplicity. 200 hours over 20 years is 10 hours a year. So really you're looking at, we'll say 12 hours a year that the boat was ran. I have a hard time finding that to be accurate. I have a hard time finding that to be correct. Now, I will say this. Nope, that hour meter's definitely been changed. I take that back because those are not marine crimp terminals where it's that hour meter's grounded at. So it's been changed. But anyway, it's a relatively low hour engine, it appears. So we might have kind of hit a jackpot-ish with the motor. I'm hoping we did. It's got Champion spark plugs in it, so those have probably been changed. It's the branding on this distributor cap. Made in USA, so it's old. It's pretty dirty. This could be an original distributor cap. This is off the points. Distributor. What's that say? Standard Plus. Okay, so that would be Standard Ignition brand, probably, from O'Reilly's, I believe is Standard Ignition brand. So the distributor cap's been changed. I'll try and see what the brand is on this coil here. Because there's still oil in it, so the coil hasn't burned up. The distributor body's still original, which isn't really much of a surprise there. Factory carb, still the factory air cleaner for it, which is actually kind of a cool looking unit. You know, Mercury's, it says power steering real big on there. I guess you're real proud of the power steering on here. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to clean this up and use this air cleaner because it looks cool. You know, it's probably not the best for filtration because it's just a screen, because really all that is the spark arrestor. But I'm going to use that air cleaner just because it looks cool. And my plan for this back here, this back area here, I've switched you to all the wide angle lens. There's supposed to be a swim deck here that comes out to about here, basically, where the end of the fuel tank is. What my plan is, to build it where the floor is not at. So basically where that cutout square is for the motor, that's going to be where that deck type deal is. And what my plan is for back here is when we build the deck, or the swim deck, because I'm going to put the swim deck back on it. I'm going to build it. The hinges are there. I'm going to build that back on this. But what I'm going to do is, instead of putting cushions on it like it would be for a swim deck, I'm going to build it just level with it and use it as a casting deck for fishing, because that's going to be a lot more useful to me. Because we're going to use this, we're actually going to fish from this boat. And I know it's not the right boat to fish from, but it's a small speedboat, so it's going to sit lower in the water, because it's got a lot of weight in it, obviously. We've got 500 pounds just in the back of the boat, and another probably 200 in the center-ish for fuel. So it's going to sit, this boat's going to sit kind of low-ish in the water, so it won't be terribly inconvenient to use for fishing. We're going to try to fire this for the first time. All I have done is crank it so far. Spray some of that down it. Got the HEI connected. Tried to fire. It's got really late timing, which I can tell. But it tried to fire. Hold on that. Woo! Hey, don't put your face right over that. I want to be able to jam that open a little bit. Actually, as long as you kind of watch that it doesn't try to come up.
Right.
I remember the worst thing that happens if it comes up, it's going to throw it out of time.
Right.
So, yeah, you give it about that much on the throttle.
Okay. Oh, well.
And don't worry about trying to get usable video footage. We'll figure that out later.
Let's watch Michael get his face blown to pieces by this car.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay, going again. Set over as your gauge say when we're cranking. Out of curiosity. That's pretty good. 25. You can hear it pop in the truck. I don't know if we're not getting enough fuel or what. It's trying. I'll hold it. Hold that down a little bit. Choke.
Choke
I
and
don't think we're
throttle.
all rich. What?
Choke and throttle.
Walk up. Yeah, gotta push it down. I'm under. This is weird. So we're getting spark, I know that. Just try to run. Okay. Might just take a minute for it to come around a little bit too. So here's our current setup, because this battery won't hold enough amps to keep cranking. So we can't just charge it and use it. So I got the truck. I got my truck hooked up to it, the jumper cables, because I have a 220 amp Power Master alternator on this truck. And then I put a piece of wood between the seat and the gas pedal to hold it at 1500 RPM, just to get it off idle and get the alternator spun up some, because it makes 150 amps at idle. The starter will pull about 200 amps, but it makes pretty good amps. And also we can suck off of my battery, which is a 700 cold crank amp battery. This is why I wanted this alternator on that truck, because you can do stuff like this and it does not hurt the alternator. And I redid all the wiring on the truck, or not all the wiring, I redid all the charge circuit wiring on the truck. The alternator charge wire is wired with 4-gauge battery cable with 150 amp maxi fuse on that battery cable. So, or a maxi, not a maxi, circuit breaker. So if the breaker trips, I can just reset it and I know not to do what I did. But that, like I said, that's why I put that alternator on this truck, because it'll do stuff like this, no problem. Was the choke on when we did that? I don't remember. Try to hold that down a little bit. Okay.
Well, try it. Let's try it without the choke. See what happens.
Turn it off, which is open. Yep.
Out of fuel. Woo! Fucking right, bro. Yeah, bleep a lot of this. Yep. We got a little bit of smoke. Huh? Oh yeah, she's pumping. I think so. Yeah, dude, she's pumping.
So, as you can see in that last clip, we finally have the boat running. And it runs pretty good, actually. It sounds healthy. Sounds good. It sounds like it's hitting on all the cylinders. Obviously, it wasn't idling great, but that's because we were feeding it with a water bottle full of gasoline with a hole punched in the cap. So, you know, precise fuel metering right there. But overall, we got accomplished what I was hoping to accomplish today, which was get it idling, make sure it makes oil pressure, makes decent oil pressure, and preferably pump water, which it does seem to be pumping water, so it doesn't look like we're going to have to immediately do anything with the pumps. Man. The carbs, I'm not even going to try the carb the way that it is. I pulled the carb off. I'm going to rebuild it and then throw it on. Didn't hook up the fuel lines of the tank. We're going to pull the tank out. We have to pull the tank out to fix the floor. So I'm not going to dump any more fuel in it because it's just going to make it heavier and we're going to have to get it out anyway. I do have a new fuel filter for it because it's got a big water separator, like oil filter sized fuel filter on it. So I got a new fuel filter we'll throw on it. I'm going to redo all the soft fuel lines, blow out the hard lines with brake cleaner, carb cleaner, something like that. Make sure it's all good. Like I said, put new filters on everything. New fuel filters on everything. Rebuild the carb, and then we'll throw that back on there. I might look into just putting a quadrajet on it instead of that dual jet, just because it gives us a little bit better fuel economy, and according to online, a little 20 more horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on the water that's a big difference. So I might look into that because I have the cast iron intake off the C10 still that bolts a quadrajet onto it, and I got a couple of extra quadrajets that I can rebuild and throw on it. So I'm going to investigate both of those avenues. But anyway, it's pumping water the way it's supposed to, and then it's running fine. It doesn't knock. It seems to be hitting on all cylinders, everything like that. So that's all good news. And then if you notice, like I said, the prop was spinning there. The reason for that is because that HEI distributor is so much larger than the points distributor. The only way I could get it to fit was if I disconnected the shift linkage and shifted the prop to reverse. That was the only way I could get the distributor to drop down far enough to work. So the whole time we were trying to start it, it was in reverse, and jumping it off the starter solenoid and hot wiring everything to the battery bypassed any safety measures that would have been there, because there's some switches on the shift lever, I'm assuming, or switch or safety lockouts, so that you don't start the boat at full throttle, which would be hilariously inconvenient if you just ram right into whatever you're trying to get onto. So anyway, but we'll get that all figured out later on. I'm just going to rebuild the points distributor and run with points for now. Because they're not terribly unreliable. It was just the ease and convenience of dropping an HEI into it was appealing to me. But if I can't drop an HEI into it, I can't. So I'll work with the points. It's not that big of a deal. But all in all, it was a very successful night. We got accomplished exactly what I wanted to, which was get it running, make sure it doesn't knock, make sure it for sure is not locked up, whatever. And we did that. So we're going full steam ahead with this now that we know we have a good motor. And the lower unit wasn't making any terrible noises. Like I said, seems to be pumping water appropriately, so that's good. It sounds really good. It sounds really healthy from the back. So I'm super excited for this project. I hope you guys are too, because this is going to be awesome when it's done. So yeah, stay tuned for more, because there's definitely more of the boat coming. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.